for this. 2 Samuel chapter 7. We'll start in verse 12, I believe it is. When your days are fulfilled and the rest of your father, I will send up your seed up. I will set up your seed after you, who will come from your body and will establish your kingdom. He will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commits iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the blows of the sons of men. Okay. The last one we'll look at is in Deuteronomy chapter 18. Deuteronomy 18. You know what? It's going to be hard to read out of Deuteronomy when I'm in Numbers. I knew something didn't look right there. Deuteronomy 18. Okay, we're going to read Deuteronomy 18:15. The Lord shall raise up for you a prophet like me in the midst of your brethren. Him you shall hear. Verse 18, I will rise up for them a prophet like you from among their brethren, and will put words in his mouth, and he will speak to them all that I command. Okay, so he's trying to get ready to telling people that his son's coming. Questions so far? Okay.
Yeah, the Jews, whichever one of these verses is talking about Christ to come. And they still wouldn't believe it. They got him and they did not believe that's who came. They wanted something else.
They wanted something else. That's right. Back in, was it Luke? Let me look at this before I lie to you now. Over in John chapter 1. Where Jesus is collecting his disciples, he says, and we'll start verse 44. Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Peter found Nathanael and said to him, we have found whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. And Nathanael said to him, can anything good come out of Nazareth? And Philip said to him, come and see. Anything else? Okay, let's get into, I just pulled out 3 other nations that God used to establish things and set things up. The Hebrew nation was very important. Through him, or through that group of people, that the Messiah would come. We can read about that in Genesis chapter 22. Bear with me, I'm still fighting with this thing. Genesis 22, verse 18. In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed because you have obeyed my voice. And that's God blessing Abraham there. Okay. Remember what did Abraham do? Where did it start out at? chapter 12. Yeah, so get away from your family. Move. Go to a place that I will tell you. Didn't even know where he's going. Just trusted God. And then he was going to sacrifice Isaac. And we know that he trusted God with that. So, you know. God also protected a remnant so that the promises of the Messianic line would be kept. You can read about that in Isaiah chapter 37. Verses 31 and 32, and a remnant whom you have escaped the house of Judah shall take root downward and bear fruit upward. For out of Jerusalem shall go a remnant, those who escaped from Mount Zion. The zeal of the Lord of the host will do this. So we have just remnants here, there, and yonder to keep the Masonic line intact. So that was the Hebrew nation. The Roman nation, what did they contribute when they were in charge? The Romans.
Well, they put the squeegees on the Hebrews.
They done that. They also made a highway system which made it very easy to spread the gospel. You didn't have to go through the thistles and thorns and creeks and this, that, and the other. So there's another way that God used them. The Greeks contributed to the language which the New Testament is composed of. It's a, hope I say this right, Koine Greek. And the word Koine means common. That was the language that the common folks or the men in the street or whatever you want to call them spoke during the time of Jesus. The research I've done on that said the language became popular 300 years before the birth of Christ, and it became obsolete 3 centuries after his death. I thought that was kind of neat. So let's go through and see a little bit about how God used and who God used to complete the things he wanted to get done. Let's go over to Genesis chapter 37, where Joseph was used to sustain the Hebrews in Egypt. Genesis 37. Was Joseph liked by his brothers? Now, what did they do to him? Threw him in a pit. Yep, that's right. So we're going to start in verse 23. So it came to pass when Joseph came to his brothers that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, and the tunic of many colors was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, so there was no water in it. And they sat down and ate a meal. And they lifted up their eyes and looked, and said there was a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices, balms, myrrh, and on their way to carry them down to Egypt. Make sure I don't read this too much. Okay, so Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and not let our hands be upon him, for he is our brother in flesh." And his brothers listened. The Midianite traders passed by, so her brothers pulled Joseph and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. Okay. Now let's go to 39 verses 1 through 5. That's right. Yep. Now when Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites and had taken him down there. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was successful. He was a successful man, and he was in the house of the master of Egypt. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord made all he done prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in the sight of him and served him, and then he made him an overseer of the house and all that he put under his authority. So it was from that time that he was made overseer of the house and all that he had. And the Lord blessed the Egyptian house and Joseph's sake, for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. So we see that God was still with him, even though his brothers didn't care much for him, and they put him in a spot where he could do good. Okay, and he was put over many things. So let's go to verse 45. Excuse me, chapter 45. That's not right. Make that chapter 41. I'll get it right here in a minute. Hang with me. Chapter 41. And we're going to read about the dream. Okay. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the good heads are 7 years, are all in one dream. And the 7 thin and ugly cows which came up after the 7 years, and the 7 empty heads blighted by the east wind, are 7 years of famine. This is the thing I have spoken to Pharaoh, and God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. And indeed 7 years of great plenty will come throughout the land of Egypt. But after them 7 years of famine will arise, and the plenty will be forgotten, and in the land of Egypt, and the famine will be depleted in the land." Okay. So the plenty will not be known in the land because of the famine following, for it will be very severe. And the dream was repeated to Pharaoh twice, because the thing established by God will be shortly be brought to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh select a discerning wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Guess who that was? Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers in the land to collect 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years, and let them gather all the food of those of the years coming to store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh, and let them keep the food in the cities. Then the food shall be a reserve for the land for the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt. The land may not perish during the famine. So the advice was good in the days of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. So now we got a plan. We put Joseph over that. Now let's go to chapter 45. What happens in this? Joseph identifies himself to his brothers, and he saves his family. Let's start in verse 5. "But now, do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you have sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve your life. For these 2 years of famine have been in the land, and there is still 5 years which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve a prosperity for you in the land, and save your lives by a great deliverance. So it was, now, not that you sent me here, but God has made me a father to Pharaoh, and the Lord of all of his house, and a ruler throughout all Egypt. Hurry and go to my father and say to him, thus your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all over Egypt. Come down and do not tarry. So he saved his family.
Roger.
Yes, sir.
It seems kind of common sense. I feel like I'd be in the same situation as brothers would be. If a younger brother of mine started to show that he was more powerful or knew more than I did, but he didn't know the future. Joseph didn't know the future, and the brothers didn't know the future.
That's true.
God did, but I think I'd have been the same way the brothers is. Maybe not. I wouldn't have killed him, but maybe I would have sold him too. Only to have the results come through. I mean,
Right.
it damns you when you got a relative that puts you down like he was.
A whole lot better than you, and you're not going to be anything. And
Well, the father was particular to him too. Gave
Right.
him multicolored. That was kind of
went down through the kids, didn't it?
well, the brothers now would be scared to death that
Yeah. Yeah.
something's going to happen to them.
Find out who he was, and what did he do to the youngest brother there? What did he do to him? Do you remember? Set him up. Yeah. Said, I'm going to keep you until you bring the father. Yeah. And the father says, how can I lose two of my sons? It's a bad deal.
Well, even with the bad thing going on, it's obvious Joseph had a great love for his family, or he wouldn't have done what he did.
That's true. Yep. You never know what decisions that you make where it's going to put you. That was something that Stephen.
It's a lesson for us today too, because parents cannot play favoritism. It just put family against family in that situation, and it can today too. So,
Yeah,
when you have children, you don't have favorites.
that's true. We had a story about that in the Old Testament, didn't we? The father loved one and the mother loved the other one, and it didn't turn out well. But they forgave each other and became family again. I like those comments. Thank you. God uses an orphan to preserve a nation. You know who the orphan was?